Welcome to the Leadmore podcast. I'm your host, John T. Meyer. The Leadmore podcast is where we sit down with leaders of today to help inspire leaders of tomorrow. Because I believe the world needs more leaders, but I also believe that leaders don't always look the way we think they do. You don't have to have the title or the Ivy League degree or 25 years of experience. Leaders come in all shapes and sizes. We need to recognize them. And in this episode, sit down with my buddy, Wes Eisenhauer. Wes, I'm going to call him an artist, but he's a little bit of everything. He's a musician, he's a photographer, he's an entrepreneur, he's a dad, he's a husband, he's a community leader. I've always just admired his passion for creating and building. In this episode, we sit down and sort of track that journey from chef to musician to photographer, how that came to be and the twists and turns that got him there, his passion for creating and building and collaborating with some of his closest friends. We also talk about a recent project he minted, an NFT. And if that sounds like a foreign language, don't worry. We unpack what that means and this really hot trend about how it might change the world for artists moving forward. So we tackled a lot here, a great conversation. I know you'll learn a lot from Wes. So here is our conversation with Wes Eisenhauer. Take a listen. Well, welcome to another episode of the Leadmore podcast. I'm here with my friend, Wes Eisenhauer. How are you, man?
Good, John. How are you?
Good. We were just talking before. How's life been? You got a camper last year?
Yes. Life's been good. I
feel like we've all made COVID purchases
absolutely.
that we didn't expect.
Yeah, as some signs of normalcy seem to be on our horizon. It's been fun to think about using the camper and that kind of thing. So it's been good.
So somebody who both your passion and probably your making a living is often events, whether it be through photography or music. How has your last year changed?
It definitely looked different than I thought it would. I can't complain at all. We had a really great year in business, but I was just talking this morning. Last year at this time, I had a trip to Africa planned for a job, in a bunch of other really cool things. That all went away, and I don't anticipate will come back. Yeah. So that was hard, but
sure.
I felt myself kind of click into hustle mode when that happened. And, I was just doing whatever I could to just make sure we had some work in those weird first couple months. And then I slowly realized that, people in businesses and brands are still going to need to market. And it's just going to look differently. Yeah. So we were fortunate enough to have a really good year.
Awesome. Yeah. Good. Well, for people who, lots of Sioux Falls folks know who you are, but if someone's listening and doesn't know who you are, this is one of the questions I want to talk about, but how do you describe your work? Because I know you touch a lot of areas.
Yeah. Most of my time is spent on photography and in filmmaking. In music, but the photography in video stuff has really taken the front seat to what we do. We launched a new company in the last year called Kick Turn Studio, which is really just kind of a rebranding,
evolution,
a way to talk about, what we do as a company. For a long time, I was kind of operating under Wes Eisenhauer Photography, and it bubbled to be more than that. So just to kind of give everybody that contributes a bigger seat at the table, something to have some ownership over. My main partner and collaborator, Isaac Show, is involved. My wife, Becca, who's a former Lemonly employee.
We love Becca,
So that's where most of our time is spent, is really helping brands and people tell their story in a visually interesting way.
Yeah, cool. I love it. So if you were to give yourself a label, do you say artist, or what do you say?
Yeah, I would call myself an artist, and sometimes that word is thrown around, but at the core of what I do, I'm passionate about making things, so I would consider myself an artist at my core for sure.
So let's unpack that journey, because you're a Sioux Falls kid.
Yeah.
I don't know, when did you start making music in high school?
No,
Okay.
not till quite a bit after high
Oh,
school.
really?
So yeah, I moved to Sioux Falls in 8th grade from Massachusetts,
Yeah, I remember
actually.
that.
And then had my high school years here. Was into music, the music scene, punk rock scene, skateboarding
Yep.
scene in Sioux Falls, and that kind of shaped my tastes and my style, I think, a lot. After high school, me and 4 friends packed up and moved to Portland, Oregon, where
Mhm.
I attended culinary school
Yeah.
at Le Cordon Bleu out there, and thought that's what I wanted to do. I was passionate about food,
It's like
and
a
I
chef, was that the goal?
yeah, I
Yeah.
thought so, or some sort of restaurant owner, and um, I went through that program. It was a 2-year program, and I ended up coming back to Sioux Falls for a 4-week externship that I had to do. So I came back and did that at Minerva's,
Oh,
actually,
yeah.
which is funny. And that was more of just I think a convenience thing, to be honest. I had a free place to stay here, so I came
Familiarity.
back.
Yeah.
Came back with a month's worth of my belongings, and met my now wife
Oh, no way.
Becca at a party, and also started making music with my brother, and which would later become our band Soul Crate that
Yeah.
had about an 18-year run. So I came back with the
Wait,
intention.
18?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. Yeah, came back with the intention of a month-long visit, and I never returned to Portland, and I've been here since.
So did you still get to, not that it really matters, but did you get to, did you finish your cooking degree
Yeah, I
then?
did. Yep,
Okay.
yep. Everything. I finished everything here and worked in local restaurants for a while.
Okay.
And then after a little while, I kind of switched gears and was a little frustrated with the restaurant industry, and I started working for my dad's company, who he runs a plumbing company.
Yeah,
so I
because
was
I know you're a plumber too. Like,
So we did, residential houses. I was a construction worker for a decade, and while I was doing that, I was making music with my brother and a longtime collaborator, Corey Gerlach.
yeah.
And that was my passion for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I would work all day and dream about that, and come home at night and work on music.
Yeah.
And we had a good run. We toured the country a couple times. We put out, 10 records
Jeez.
over the years. And that is what led me to photography for sure. We, as a musician, you kind of got to be everything, especially, an indie musician that's kind of doing everything for yourself. So
You carry the gear, you set up the gear.
absolutely. But it taught me and us about how to market ourselves, how to design a poster, how to take a photo, how to organize and execute an event.
Yeah.
So I always kind of refer to the Soul Crate music days as like, that was like my real college education.
Yeah.
That's what threw me out
Get
into
the
the world
reps.
and forced me to just kind of learn it as I go.
Cool.
And that was fun.
That's awesome. I kind of see it as like, I've always admired your work because it's like we talk the term of like a Renaissance man, right? Like someone
Sure.
who kind of good at everything they do. But Renaissance, of course, has such this old connotation. You're kind of like a modern version of that,
Sure.
right? It's like, I know how to use TikTok and I can do music. And then, now we're going to mint an NFT. Like,
Sure.
so I love it. And I remember, you can never quite remember you saying this. We met when you started the breaks, which we'll talk
Mhm.
about that too. And you were like, I don't ever want to be put in a box or like pinned down.
Sure.
So like what you said that, and it stuck with me. What does that mean to you?
And maybe that points to my lifelong battle with ADD, but I like starting things.
Yeah.
And especially with the breaks, which I'm actually no longer a part of.
Yeah.
Corey and Mary, Campbell and Gerlach have since taken that over and ran with it. The new
So
cafe
for folks,
location.
yeah, that was a coffee brand,
Yes,
coffee
the Breaks
roast.
Coffee Roasting Company, which my longtime collaborator in music, Corey, and I started about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But that was a chance for us. A lot of different things happened. We ended up buying a building in North Downtown, and at first I had dreamt about doing this, but I came to 4 or 5 of my closest friends and collaborators and said, "Hey, I really want to buy this space. Would you rent part of this for the first year at least, to just know that I have a year covered,
it,
right?"
yeah.
And that was a time when Corey was roasting coffee at Black Sheep.
Yeah.
And Corey's super gifted in the coffee space, and he kind of had been thinking about it, and we just both looked at each other and it was like, yeah, now's the time to do it if we're ever going to do it. So Corey and I started the breaks. And my role there was just to try to help Corey shine, because he's really the talent behind that whole thing.
I'm drinking right here right
now.
now.
Absolutely. Super, super talented on the coffee roasting side of things. And for me, it was just another fun experience to, how do we want to present this to the world? How do we want this to look? How do we want this to feel? How do we let's design the bag and the brand. And that, in hindsight, is what I was passionate about. After 3 or 4 years in, I realized that, maybe coffee in general wasn't my passion.
Sure.
I enjoy the brand development and in that sort of thing. So at a certain point, it made the most sense for me to kind of step away and for Corey and Mary to take it and run with it.
Yeah, now it's a full-time location and a coffee shop, and
super proud of what those guys have done with the Breaks Cafe. It's really everything that I think they had envisioned from the start. And I don't think their intention was a cafe from when we had started it, but that exact location was really always on the radar. And Corey had always been like, I don't have a lot of interest in a cafe, but if this spot opens up,
really.
And we kind of put that out into the world to Monty, the business owner, like, hey, if this ever opens, please let us know. And eventually it did.
Cool.
And they took the leap. So
I love
proud
that.
of them.
I feel like there's a lesson there too. So like, Corey, you worked in music, then you worked in coffee. Isaac, you guys did photography, and then also you've done music.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's something there about like working with people you like to work with, right? And working with people that probably push you and challenge you. Speak to that.
Yeah. Corey and I, again, collaborating on music, we work well together in a business setting. I think we definitely bring different skill sets to the table. My role is usually the kind of dreaming big and wild ideas, and often Corey was the one who would kind of reel me back in and find a good actual way to execute. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think my relationship with Corey has always been just, we work well together and we bring different things to the table. Same with Isaac. Isaac is a friend of mine that he's the kind of guy that I know is always down for what my idea would be. And likewise, I can call him at 11 o'clock at night on a Tuesday and be like, hey, the Milky Way is popping tonight. Let's grab our cameras and some lawn chairs and drive out to the country and take photos. And I know he'll be there in 10 minutes. Like,
cool.
So that's what I've always appreciated about Isaac, is he's down for sure. It's just, I've been lucky enough to find people that before we collaborate, we click, right? Like we're good friends to start with.
Is that sort of like a criteria, you would say?
Not necessarily, or not intentionally, but it's just made itself apparent over the years. Like, I've been messing with the same crew of people for more than a decade, and I still appreciate them every time I interact with them, and I'm happy to see them in the office, and I'm happy to have a place that we can all go and just kind of get it out of us.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I think the line between like work and play is maybe pretty blurry, which is cool.
Yeah, it is. And it's also, sometimes when I go into the office, it can be a distraction as well. I have to close my door sometimes because there's, someone noodling on a guitar over here, and there's Corey roasting coffee in the other room, and there's so sometimes it can be a bit of a distraction, but I do think of our space as kind of a
creative
it's like a fun house, it's our own personal fantasy factory of cameras and skateboarding and music and production and that kind of stuff. So
that's awesome.
It's fun to play.
Well, let's talk, speaking of breaks, like in your photography career, that was pretty accidental too. Like, it kind of started as like you wanted to take pictures of your daughter, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, it came out of the music. So I would say in, maybe 2011, 2012, Soul Crate, we needed stuff. We needed video. We needed photos. And as a band, we bought a Canon 5D Mark II and a nice lens. So we had a band fund that came from playing shows, and
slush fund.
And so the band bought this camera, and I kind of took it over and said, I want to learn everything about this, with the intention of making videos with it. And After having it for a little while, I realized, okay, I should learn how to compose a photograph and really know the ins and outs before I even leap into video. And I practiced on my daughter, who was a newborn at the time.
Yeah.
So it really came out of just the necessity of music. And then I decided that I really wanted to know about this powerful piece of gear in my hand. And so I chased my daughter around for years. And after a while, I was lucky enough to have a few mentors in the community. One being Walter Ports, who kind of noticed my interest in photography. And, it was largely like Instagram. I was just like Instagramming, and that was fun to me. And he reached out and said, hey, would you ever be down to assist me?
Okay.
He was a wedding photographer primarily at the time. And I was just geeked, like, oh man, okay, I'm going to get paid to learn, right? Like, that's the best. So he took me under his wing for a little while, and I worked with them and learned the ropes of like the wedding industry.
Seems like that's where a lot of photographers start. Yeah, that's kind of where the money early gigs are.
Yeah, for sure. And I think
Seniors,
it's a lot of like wedding photography is a hustle, right? Like it's definitely about, like, for me at the time, being that age when a lot of people are getting married. That works out well.
You get a lot of ask.
Yeah, for sure. So I was lucky enough to kind of get to learn under the guidance of a few people. And then after a little while, I was still working construction, and I was miserable. Like, it was a great job, and I had nothing to complain about, but it wasn't where my heart was.
Yeah.
So I think when my daughter was about maybe 1.5, 2 years old, I had a talk with my wife, Becca, and another person had made me a great offer, Joe Hubers of Passenger Productions. He said, hey, would you ever be willing to come, work part-time for me and learn? And I took that to Becca, and with the side hustle of photography that I was doing, I was like, I think we can make this work if I go work for him, and then I keep hustling on the weekends with photography. And so it's kind of a crazy time with a newborn to do a career change, just cold. And luckily I had her blessing, and I went to work with Joe and learned filmmaking under one of the best guys around. And it just kind of kept snowballing from there. And eventually I just kind of went on my own and started my own company. And it's been good.
And I feel like you've done a great job utilizing the tools at your disposal. So like you've had a few moments, whether it be through Instagram or I know Reddit, where you've been able to have photographies that or photos that have really popped, like and kind of quote unquote viral. How did that change the trajectory of your business, or is it more of like a nice feel good and then you kind of go back to the grind?
I've had a lot of success with my photography on Reddit. To me, it's just kind of a game, right?
Sure.
It's like fake internet points in a way, right? Like getting your post to the front page of Reddit is like this coveted space, right?
But you've done it more than once.
Yeah,
like you're
several
good at
times.
it.
Yeah. And I've learned that it's about having a powerful image, but it's also about having a catchy title.
Sure.
So, that classic, you'll never believe what happened next. Kind of clickbaity stuff like
Bat
that,
Boy.
Yeah, it that works. And luckily, I hope, in my opinion, that the stuff that they were clicking through to was actually quality stuff.
Sure.
And I had some really good luck with some cool, like, astronomical stuff that I captured, namely a Milky Way time lapse that had like an exploding meteor in it, and that really helped me in the sense that like National Geographic covered it, Time Magazine did an article on it. Suddenly my Twitter and my Instagram were verified because of those national. So was it like super important? Not really, but it also goes to that perception piece, right? People perceive you to be this person who's kind of an authority in the field, and so I'm
which changes what you can charge.
Absolutely.
And
and also I think it goes to show, and this is something that I still rely on to this day, is that it shows that I think that I was really passionate, and I am really passionate about making images and going out with my camera, and these are the things that I was doing for fun. And they've always, those passion project things that I do for myself are always the things that lead me to more work. So it's always just been about like making myself available to these images in going out on the hunt. That's like one of my favorite things to do.
Well, I think about the one with where you're swinging Jonah around. I think Becca took the picture like around your waist, right?
Yeah.
And it got like memed. Like once you get memed, then you know you've made it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's just about like knowing how to use the internet, right?
Sure.
And it's changing all the time, and but it's something that I've remained interested in, and like how can I get this stuff out to the world?
Cool. I think there's definitely a lesson there, and just like you create because you want to create, and you like have this passion for creating, and then you figure out down the road how to make it into like a living, right? You'd be doing this either way. Like if you were a banker, you'd still be doing this.
Absolutely. And I think again, like people just seeing that passion, it's led people to put trust in me to, where a lot of times I'll get approached for a job and I just like, oh my goodness, this is way beyond what I can handle, but figuring it out and knowing when to rely on other people and how to build out a team. Because
ask for help.
Absolutely. So I feel like South Dakota tourism took a big risk on me that brought me in to create 10 plus like documentary pieces for them. And at the time, in hindsight, like, man, they really believed in me. And I can't believe it. Like, I'm so lucky they did, because I grew so much during that process. But I believe that they saw my passion for the state of South Dakota and just capturing that imagery, and they trusted me to help them create their brand. So I mean,
that was authentic. Like it's your home state.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a perfect segue. So like you're building, you did a cool project where you put a "Welcome to Sioux Falls" message on the roof, so that if you fly into town, you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about. I know you've done local tourism too, like your passion for Sioux Falls. You run music festivals or concerts here. What's your take on, let's say from when you were that externship at Minerva's to today? How's Sioux Falls changed?
Man, it's changed a lot. I've always looked at what we have here in Sioux Falls as kind of a blank slate. Like your ability to have an impact here is so much larger than other well-established markets, right? So even back in the days of Soul Crate, we talked about like, should we move to Minneapolis? Like there's a huge scene up there that we could be a part of. And we kind of all agreed that we could have a much bigger impact by staying here and building something for ourselves. And that happened in music. And I'm very deliberate about that with photography. Your ability to do new things and to make waves and to have an impact in a growing city like Sioux Falls is exponential to other places. So, and I say this all the time. When I say us, I don't mean me in particular, but like, if not us, then who? If there wasn't a John Meyer and a Lemonly here, who would be doing it? Maybe somebody, but not to the level that you're doing it. So I take a lot of pride in the fact that like, if we're not here making things and making our city better and pushing the limits, then it won't happen.
Cool.
So I'm passionate about that as well.
Yeah, and that's that's why I see you as a leader, right? Because you're going to go out there and create and innovate, whether someone's paying you to do it, like it's in your blood. And so I think that's an inspiration to others. You might operate as a payroll, as a small team, but you collaborate and work with a lot of people. And I'm sure people have been inspired, by you as a leader building your own career here.
Yeah, I hope so. And those are the people that I'm inspired by, like the people who just go out and do it. And do it for the right reasons, right? Yeah. And I've always wanted to be that myself. So I hope that I've embodied that. And I hope people have seen that about my work is, you're right, like I would be doing this regardless of whether or not I was getting paid to do it. And then the challenge becomes like, when you do make it your life and your living, how do you stay inspired? And how do you keep doing it for the right reasons, right? Because I've dealt with that too, it's really easy to be passionate about going out and taking photos when you're dreaming about it all day when you're working a construction job. But when you've been staring at a screen for 8 hours editing a video for a client, sometimes it's hard to say, hey, I'm going to pick my camera up and go shoot this sunset.
For fun,
So that's where, music has kind of come back into my life that way. Which
is, so I was going to ask you next, because you kind of retired from
a
Soul
little
Crate.
bit. Yeah. We kind of
didn't last long.
We put a period on the group Soul Crate, but right after we did that, like this flood of new music came out of me, and I felt near the end of Soul Crate, almost felt like in a box. Like, what do we do next? I don't know what to do now. You know, so it was cool to start some new stuff and to be scared again and nervous on stage again.
Nice.
But yeah, so. It's fun for me now. I'm making more music than I ever have, and it's funner now because it's more fun now because I'm not relying on it to pay the bills as much. I can just have fun with
outlet.
it. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So how do you, with all that in mind, like you're probably at that point where you maybe have more creative opportunities than you can actually say yes to. What's your filter? Like, how do you decide what's the right project for Wes?
I think I have to, it's really about just being honest with myself. Is this something that I am truly inspired by and passionate about? Even, with me stepping away from the breaks, that was just me being honest with myself about, what, maybe this isn't my passion. Maybe it's time to get out of the way so Corey and Mary can kind of take off and do what this is meant to do. So it's just honestly asking myself honest questions. Is this really what I want to be doing? Because it's easy to get kind of blinded by the newness or a new opportunity. And then honestly, just kind of saying no to things, whether that be on the business side or on the pleasure side, is just scaling it back and making sure that I'm doing what I'm doing for the right reasons. So I don't burn out or, don't give it my all or something like that.
One thing I hadn't prepped you for, I didn't think I was going to ask you, but I'm curious. I always admire folks who can work with their spouse because it's just, it's blurry, right? You have like personal, professional. Becca, phenomenal project manager, operations person, processes, was a perfect fit when she went to go work with you. How's that been?
It's been really good. And honestly, we both approached it cautiously, I think, because we were both aware that this could go either way. But I've always been very intentional about surrounding myself with people who make me better. And I'm very, very lucky that my wife makes me better in almost all circumstances. And it's been a dream come true for me to have somebody like her step into the role of project management and allow me to just do the things that I'm good at doing, because I'm not good at those things, And so for the first couple of years, I was, just flailing and just trying to figure it out as I go. And, I'm the accountant and I'm making the schedules and I'm dealing with the clients. And, I'm very lucky that Becca had the background she did, coming from a place like Lemon Lee. She worked at Great Western Bank for a little while. So she had these really great experiences. And, we had some unfortunate events happen with her mom passing away and her kind of needing to step away for a little bit and be at home with our kids. We had a newborn at the time. And at a certain point, she was ready to kind of come back and we decided to give it a shot. And, and it's been good. She makes us all better.
Yeah, that's great. Taking a quick break here from our conversation with Wes, I just wanted to ask you if you're willing to go to Apple and give us a 5-star review for the Leadmore podcast. If you like this show, I would love a 5-star review. You could even leave a comment or a testimonial. It just helps other people find the show and discover it, helps us rank. We'd love to hear it. If you're a fan of the Leadmore podcast, thank you so much and would love your help there. All right, back to the show. So in the spirit of kind of always creating, and I'll ask you next kind of maybe what you see, the 10 years from now, Wes, doing. But recently you did a cool project, which is, I think we'll drop this episode in a couple of weeks, the kind of the buzziest thing on the internet right now, which is called an NFT. And so we probably should briefly explain what that is, because I'm guessing I know my mom listens to this show and I don't know if she knows what a non-fungible token is. So what's your, I'll let you do the 30 seconds.
A couple weeks ago, it was the first time this came onto my radar. I started hearing about this phenomenon where people were minting pieces of artwork on the blockchain and selling them, and it was like the gold rush was happening. All these artists were making a lot of money, and I think a lot of people
little FOMO.
Oh, definitely. I was talking to a friend, Kyle Muchnelhouse, about this, and he's like, "My goodness, I'm behind." I'm like, "Bro,
he'd be a perfect one too."
I'm like, everyone's behind, And then so it just, you hear all this stuff like, this is gonna change the world. This is gonna change how artists create. Blah blah blah. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I better get on board or get left behind. And so. I went through the process. I figured out how to mint my own NFT. I bought some
That's
cryptocurrency.
Not something to take lightly.
No, it was.
You dug in.
It was hard, honestly. I was super frustrated for a couple days. And then, I got my first piece up, and then it's just like, oh, okay. This is, I think the thing about the NFT space is like, it's just like anything else. You have to be involved in the community. You have to be interacting. It's still a hustle. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I think
there's no quick
no, there's
win,
not.
Yeah.
There never is. And maybe some of these very early adopters who are selling their works for millions of dollars, they might have gotten it at the right time. But at this point, 2 weeks after I've learned about this, I feel like there's a million people like myself who figured out how to get it up there. And then it's like, okay, is this, this isn't just going to happen overnight for everybody.
Yeah.
So, and also like, we spoke a little bit before this, I've also learned a lot of like the negative sides of this whole NFT movement with the impact on our environment. And a lot of people have opinions about this. So, I figured out how to mint my first NFT. I got a piece up online, and then I was like, okay, now it's like time to do something with that if I want to, right?
Yeah.
It's not like this, instantly you're going to start selling $1 million of artwork. But I do think it's an interesting technology. I do think, it's certainly the way the world is going to go. And I'm learning some new things every day. So I definitely don't claim to be an expert, but I also... I just enjoy like learning new things and getting excited about the future.
I mean, I think it's been up for just a matter of days, right? So like, how's the response been?
It's been cool. Like, I mean, I don't know. I actually minted that Milky Way time lapse, which for me, I think
was a perfect first one.
I think so. Like, I feel like it is actually a rare moment in time that I captured. So maybe somebody might see some value in that, but honestly, I don't have any intention of like getting rich off of this. You know what I mean? Like, I just enjoyed learning about it.
Yeah.
And just the challenge of how do I participate?
Yeah. Because do you get to decide how many, what's the right word? Like,
editions per se. Yeah. So you could make it 1 of 100, or you can make it 1 of 1.
And so how many did you do?
I just did 1 of 1.
Okay. So someone bought it?
No, I haven't sold it. No, it's just like I own it. It's in my collection.
Okay.
So the interesting piece of it is that, if someone were to buy it and resell it, like, I would forever be attached to it
because of the blockchain.
Because of the blockchain. And so, I think there's a 10% built into that smart contract where anytime it exchanges hands, like 10% of that would come back to me. And so that's
royalties,
right. And so I think that's the allure with art and music, is that this is a way for artists to kind of attach themselves and not be, not get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a huge culture of artists that are being taken advantage of, perhaps, out there. So it's just it's a new thing. It's a very hot thing at the moment, and we'll see what we all think about it in a year.
Yeah, it's so fresh right now. I think just yesterday, and we'll drop this episode in a couple of weeks, but Beeple sold a NFT for $69 million. And so people, of course, are like, this was a get rich thing. But I'm also like, this guy's been creating work every day for 14 years.
Yeah.
So like he's been grinding.
Exactly right. So, and that's again goes back to the people who oftentimes are the most successful are the people who would be doing it regardless in their field, right? They're the people who are just writing songs that you'll never hear, or taking a photo every day with no real intention of how they're going to use this, right? So a lot of those things I feel like have paid off in my career, just showing up for your passions, whether you have a real clear intention of where it's going to go or not.
That's awesome. That's a good lesson, I think. And yeah, I mean, there's some real respect for creating art every day for 5,000 days.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's impressive. It'll be fun to look back at that and see kind of where that goes.
For sure.
And even just, dipping your toe in and learning about that. I would imagine the first one in South Dakota, do you think?
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
It's hard to kind of verify that. But
after I started talking about it, I just, put a few things out on my Instagram and Twitter, and I got invited to like a cryptocurrency meetup like in Sioux Falls that happens once a month. And like, so a lot of people who kind of came out of the woodwork, or Barry Putsky from Bread and Circus.
He's in the Top Shots.
He's like, hey, I've been collecting these for a while. That's cool. I'm like, you know what? Like, even though just those conversations are
that's
interesting,
worth it, yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, I had no idea that you cared about that space or you were interested in this space. And so I think we can all learn from each other. And again, it'll be interesting to see what we think about this a year from now.
Yeah, and I think that's the point is like as a society, we like to declare something very definitively, like this is either the wave of the future,
right,
or it's just a huge bubble. And it's like, maybe it could be a little bit of both.
Absolutely.
Right? A little gray.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks for doing that.
Absolutely.
Let's finish with a little rapid fire just for folks to get to know you. So I think you're a reader. So what's a book that you've read recently, or one that you often like share with people?
I have a couple. So I'm a big fan of fiction and science fiction as of the last couple of years. But on a nonfiction recommendation, I actually got this from you, John. The book Atomic Habits by James Clear was a super actionable. I still, implement some of those things I've read in that book. So I actually think I got it from you off of a Facebook post or something.
Or I maybe made Becca read. I don't know if she was
something.
still here.
I know that I equate it to seeing on something that your recommendation. And so that, to me, if you want to like an easy way to make subtle changes that last and stick and have an impact, Atomic Habits is really good. On the science fiction side, like in 2019, I read like 50 plus books.
Wow.
And it was mostly in the science fiction genre. And I just like rediscovered reading again. And it was like as a escape. So if I had to recommend something on that side, I would recommend Dune by Frank Herbert. It was a really cool, super intimidating.
I know there's a huge cult around that book.
Yeah, my dad is a huge fan of it, and always for 30 years, like, you got to read Dune. But it's
pretty thick, right?
It's super thick and intimidating to start. It's like a lot of really great world building, and like, you got to kind of learn a new language to read it. And I was always like, do I really want that responsibility? But super, super good book. And then you find other like Dune nerds, and you can talk about it. Because again, people are like, oh yeah, I've read all 6 Dune books. I'm like, well, I had no idea. That's fantastic. So.
That's great. So I think the pandemic has come up in at least every episode because the show started in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. How do you, as a dad, as an entrepreneur, husband, how do you unplug during a pandemic?
It's funny. I was reflecting on this the other day too, because it's about a year exactly that we went into like a lockdown. But I dove into just fitness, like
really?
Really, like at home. I realized, oh my goodness, I don't have to go to the gym. Like, it's really like, that has been a huge, huge, huge release for me. I feel better than I've ever felt. So, I linked up with a local personal trainer, Matt Dolan at Forge Strength, and he showed me like what to do. And that's another thing, is like that space is so intimidating. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do.
Find someone who's been there.
And I built out a tiny little corner in a bedroom with a home gym and some weights and like a pull-up bar, and like I look forward to it so much. So that has been a huge, huge thing for my mental stability, is just working out and just craving that feeling of like exertion.
Cool. Good for you. Parents are leaders. 100% in my eyes. So what's a parenting tip or advice you'd give to somebody?
Oh man, parenting is certainly the wildest journey I've ever been on.
Two daughters, like
two
me.
daughters,
I love
yep. 4 and 9 years old at this point. A few things, I guess, is just like taking care of yourself so you can take care of the people who count
Depend
on you.
Yeah.
Finding, enjoyment in reading a book or exercising and making sure you take that time so you're good. Is a huge thing.
It's a good reminder.
And also I've learned, through my own life experience that like there isn't one way to learn, and kids are so different from each other. And I wish that someone had told me when I was a kid that like this was possible, what I do now. No one ever told me that this was possible. I thought you had to go get a degree and find a job that you didn't like and just kind of deal with it and raise the family. And no one in my life had ever told me like you can find something you're passionate about and you can go out and get it if you are clever and you just take your time and believe in it. And so I wish that for my kids more than anything, especially my oldest daughter, who is just like me in the sense that she's super ADD and all over the place and not a conventional learner.
Yep.
I hope she can find something that just really gets her fired up in her life. Like, cool. And that's the best thing.
Modeling that. So
I hope so.
That's awesome. What do you think your superpower is? We've talked about a lot of your projects. Like, what's the one thing you think you do best?
I think my ability to thrive in stressful situations is something that I've found to be super helpful in where I do my best work.
Sure. Nothing really shakes you.
I feel like it comes from music. I feel like getting on stage in front of 1,000 people and knowing how to manage that feeling and still perform and do a good job, and maybe have some forgiveness on yourself after if it didn't go good. So I feel like freestyling and making up a song on the spot in front of 1,000 people that are all looking at you and waiting for you to drop it has been a really, really good exercise in stress management. So I feel like lately the companies that call me for work are the companies who are like, we knew that you were the only dude who could handle this. I've had a few people say that to me lately, and I take that like, cool. I wear that as such a badge of honor. Like, wow, they think that we are the ones who can handle this.
Because maybe the timeline is tight, or
timeline is tight. It's they know they're asking for something crazy in the timeline. So that to me, just the ability to perform under pressure, I feel like is where I thrive. It's actually when things are just easy and comfortable is where I feel like I lose my way sometimes, because it's just too. I get lost, or I get complacent. Yeah. So when I have a clear, stressful moment that I know I can zoom in and focus on, I feel like that's where I do my best work.
Cool. I'd say that's superpower for sure. So lastly, you mentioned a couple of mentors, but who are like the leaders who have inspired you, whether you know them or don't?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question. I might not have a specific person, but I think about the people who lead by example, the people who are just out there doing it and doing it for the right reasons. Those are the inspiring people to me. One person I think of in particular that I don't know, in the professional skateboarding world, a guy named Neen Williams.
Okay.
Professional skateboarder, into his 30s, found the partying and skateboard lifestyle really catching up with him, and said to himself, if I don't make a change now, I'm going to lose my career and I'm just going to be an old washed up skateboarder. So, he got sober, started getting really into fitness and training like a real athlete. In his mid-30s, completely revived his skateboarding career to where he's one of the top pros. He's super influential in the fitness space. So he's turned that realization of, skateboarding is not just it could easily become just a partying lifestyle, right? And he just reflected on it and he made some changes and he completely transformed his career, which I think that's super inspiring. That's somebody I follow on Instagram.
That's a cool story.
And I think there's a lot of cases like that of like, I better make some changes, or this could go away quickly, because it can all slip away fast. So
having like an inflection point that forces you to kind of decide which path you're going to take.
So Neen Williams, he's super inspiring.
I'm going to check him out. Cool. Well, this was great. Fun to catch up, Wes, and hear what you've been up to, and keep inspiring so many people here in Sioux Falls and in the region.
Thanks, man. Likewise.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Take care.
All right, that was our conversation with Wes Eisenhauer. I hope you enjoyed that one. Really just easy to talk to Wes, and I learned a lot, so it was a fun chat. Remember, we drop new episodes of the Leadmore podcast every single Thursday, and you can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever, or at www.leadmorepodcast.com. Thanks for listening. Take care and be well.